Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 22. This is One Day Today. Thank you all for joining us. I'm really excited about our show today. And we've had as I was saying on Tuesday, we've had a quite an eventful, well, I got to say, the last few months have been pretty eventful, but the last 2 weeks, the world has been, everything we've been experiencing has kind of been magnified, after the pandemic is, obviously been on every corner of this world in every country, no matter where you live. You've not only heard of coronavirus, but you've been affected by it. And now there's like a second civil rights movement that's not going anywhere. And what I see is a lot of amazing conversations that are happening, a lot of tough conversations, but a lot of self-discovery, people who are looking in themselves to see, what is my impact? What is my role in, in my community, in my neighborhood, in my state, in my country, in my world, and like what is my impact? And is up to this point have who I've been and what I've witnessed in the world. Is it contributing? Is it helping my neighbor? Is it helping my brothers and sisters from other corners of the world? And I'm really excited to have both of our guests share today. I'm gonna invite my co-host Matthew. Matthew, how's it going today?
Busy, man. So busy today. Um,
Tell me about it.
oh, dude, we got a huge endorsement in the campaign that just came out today, and so it's just been one thing after another, just getting out as much information as I can as quickly as possible, and like running things by Blair, and it's been awesome. But man, like talk about having to grow. Like I just haven't had a choice but to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because who I was the day before isn't big enough to contain what's happening today.
Well, you said it. It is a choice. When we can face our situation and we can decide to stay small and not do all the things that we know we're capable of, or we can kind of grow with each obstacle and create something, a new situation for ourselves and our world that wasn't there the day before.
Absolutely. And we were talking about this not too long ago. The story of overwhelmed is simply the identity that I was not big enough to contain what I am today. Like is that how you put it? How did you say that?
Right. I actually wrote it down, but it's basically I can't. My identity is resisting either the personal or professional growth uh, that's happening. It's like we can't. Our identity doesn't want to accept or take responsibility for it, and but it's an opportunity. And with that, in that context, it's an opportunity. That conversation of overwhelm is an opportunity, like you're saying, to grow. And I think I've been dealing the same thing. It's there's always more and more, and I feel like I can't fit anymore. And then I see it as an opportunity to challenge myself to grow and to see how I can better use my energy and my time to be balanced and centered, but also to contribute to other people. Um, I'm super excited to have both our guests. I'm gonna go ahead and invite our first one. We have Sara Im with us. Hello, Sara. Thank you for joining
Hi.
us.
Oh, thank you, Abram and Matthew.
Welcome to the safe, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Uh,
We we are so glad to have you. I'm just gonna let you have at it, Sara. I'm looking forward to your share, but Sara, the stage is now yours.
okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sara M. And I want to start out to tell you a little bit about my journey. What what got me started is when I was in college. I attended the college which is away from home, about 400 miles from home, to say the exact. And in 1975, in the middle of April, my country just experienced an unthinkable that recorded in history forever. And some of you probably remember This is when the communists took over Cambodia. And the group called the Khmer Rouge, they are communist group. When they came in, they shut down the city. And they shut down the college, of course, and everything in the city. More like turn off the light in the city. So here I am, away from home, all alone, and no more college to go. And I had to leave the house, the place that I call home. So I was evacuated. And they pushed us away from the city. All of us. There are millions of people that was evacuated during this horrible time. April is the hottest time of the year in Cambodia. So we were walking in the heat for many, many weeks. And finally, to make the story short, in the work camp. This is the forced labor camp. They put us to work like slaves. We were in slavery. We worked like 18, 19 hours a day, 7 days a week, and no rest. And we have about a few hours of sleep, maybe 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep. And not only that, we receive just a little bit of food to eat. Can you imagine that? Working that long hour and get just a little bit food to eat and just a little bit time to sleep, and there's no rest. How long can you take that? Didn't take me long. Pretty soon I became very sick. And my sickness is like malaria, typhoid fever. And then I lost a lot of weight. I emaciated. And I became I have that night blindness, so I can't see anything at night. So all this condition, I still had to go to work until one day I can't go to work anymore. And then I was pushed to a place where the sick people stay. And I realized that I need to get out from this place because a lot of people die in that place. So I ran away from that, and I found myself God's blessing. I was blessed to have somebody found me a job in the kitchen. That was the lifesaver. So I struggled during this time. Barely have the time to think about anything except think about my parents, my family. That's what kept me going. All this time I suffered just so much. I could not undo it unless I thought about my family. I thought about my mom, who just recovered from a paralysis for 4 years, and I was the caregiver. And we built such a strong relationship. I wish I was home. I wish I know where they are, how they do. But we will scatter all over the country. There's no connection whatsoever. There's no communication or transportation. So I miss them so much. And that's kept me going. I want to be back home. And finally, I endure 4 long years. At the end of 4 years, I was pushed to go further and further into the wood. And I realized that that's the wrong direction. I don't want to keep going with this group anymore. I have to escape. I cannot do it. I need to find my way home. So that's what my thinking at that time. And I was gathering 3 of my close friends and asked them to see if they would escape with me. And they did. So we made plan to escape. For the sake of time, I just want to tell you, that our escape plan worked. We did. We survived. Could not imagine if they caught us during our runaway. We would be shot to death right there. But God had protected us. And I finally looked for my way home, and I asked around and tracked down how to go back to my hometown. So finally I arrived and everything was burned down. People were scattered all over. I couldn't find my family, and I did not give up. I tracked down, and finally I found my family. When my mom saw me the first time, she didn't recognize me. I was just out of shape. But she restored my health. She pampered me with her organic food from her garden, and she cooked and she prepared and she nurtured me. So nurture back to good health. So that's my short story. And eventually I realized that the country is still not safe. My mom convinced me to escape. At that time, there's no way that I can buy the airplane ticket and fly out. No. So I ran away again. I crossed over to the Thai border and was able to find my uncle, and he sponsored me to come to United States. So I arrived in United States in Connecticut in September 1981. So I just want to share with you the backstory about my life. And it had been 40 years, well, almost 40 years now that I live in this country. It's not easy. It was a lot of struggle, but it's much better than living in the communist regime in the forced labor camp. That's how I see it. A lot of struggle, learning the new language, getting the GED to enroll in the college again, and I make my way and I graduate and I become citizen and I sponsor my family to come over. So what I want to share with you is this, that there are three key important things that kept me alive and then kept me going during this time as well. The number one is hope. Remember, I never give up hope. I think of my family all the time, and I want to go back home. I have that hope that one day, I will be able to find them. So Helen Keller said, hope will see the invisible, will feel the intangible, and will reach the impossible. So hope is very important back then and now. So if you are facing any challenge, you cannot give up that hope. You have to have that hope. And then key point number 2 is healing. See, when I lost my weight, I was just skin and bone. And I was so sick. I need to be healed. The healing is very important to restore our health. And not only that, it's healing our inside. Healing from resentment, bitterness, anger, and what else? So we have to be healed in order for us to make progress. I have some friends who still struggle with PTSD and depression, but healing is so important. We cannot move on without healing. If you run a business, there's something might hold you back because you seem to not moving forward for any reason. The past that is holding you back from moving forward. And Jim Rohn said that some people, they don't do well simply because they don't feel well. Hope healing doesn't uh, healing doesn't mean that damage never happen. It just means that the damage no longer control our life. So the third point I'd like to share is the determination. And you heard my story. Determination is my key important. I determined that I want to live, I want to survive, I want to go find my family. Determination and perseverance is very important for our life success. So if you want to pursue anything, determination is the first critical decision that you need to have. Very strong the determination will help you from quitting, because sometimes life is so tough and we tend to look for a way out. So when you have a strong determination, you don't want to look for a way to quit. You keep moving, you keep pushing through until you reach your destination. So that's my three key. There's so many more life lessons that I learned during my experience. But for today, that's what I like to share with you. So I encourage you to look at those areas: the hope, healing, and determination. If if you don't have any of them, you might want to consider what do you need to do to heal yourself, to forgive somebody. If you have the bitterness, you have anger. Like me, I could have been angry with that communist regime, the Khmerus, that managed to kill about 2 million people in the 4 years period. I could hold that grudges, resentment, and bitterness. So there is saying that you either be bitter or better. The bitterness will tear you apart. I hope you choose better. So I encourage you to never give up. Life can be better. Today might be bad. Today you might struggle. You might lose your job. You might not be able to see your loved one that you long to see. But everything changed. Tomorrow might be better. But you focus on today, how you can do today. That's all you can do. But you hope for the better future. Don't give up that hope. So there's so much more into my story. I put it in a book. It's called How I Survived the Killing Fields. So if you stay in touch with me, you check my website, you will find it. This book it helped to inspire you to not to give up, to push forward, to reach that goal, and to restore that love with your family. Because sometimes when things get tough, family fall apart because they get angry at each other instead of uh, helping each other and uniting with each other. So if you want to get that book, just go to my website, you will find it. But I am happy to share my quick story with you. But I'm on Facebook, all over Facebook. If you want to touch base, you want just to follow me, and you want to ask questions, feel free to follow me. And I always like to share, to inspire people to have hope. So I think my time is almost up, right? Uh, so yeah, put your comment if you need to connect. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. and also on Twitter. Find me. I look to connect with you. I have the group. It's called From Surviving to Thriving. My friend Lee Tran and we are the survivor from. She's from Vietnam and I'm from Cambodia. We came through a different route. She escaped through the sea and I escaped through the jungle. And we met and we formed this group. It's our conversation is every day at 5 o'clock. So you can follow us and listen to our conversation. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Sarah. Just a heads up, we've lost Abram. He's having a bit of technical difficulties. He's having to restart his computer. But
Uh,
thank you for sharing that. Like that, it always breaks my heart hearing those stories. And at the same time, like there's this recognition that it's the hardest parts of my life that have actually become the most beautiful parts in retrospect. Like if that pain hadn't happened, I wouldn't be capable of being here today and holding space for this conversation. So thank
mhm.
you for that, and thank you for your determination. Like just staying with it. Like I don't feel like many people recognize that they have the choice that you made, which was to live. Um, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that, just making that choice to live and what it really meant to you.
Yes, I have received a lot of questions concerning that because live or die, sometimes you don't have a control. But what you can control is your mindset, is your determination, is why you want to live, what you live for. So for me, it's not about me. If I die right then, the misery was over. It's a lot easier. But my life is for my family. That's how I think. I think my mom will miss me terribly if I didn't show up because she sent me to college, to better education, and then I never show. I never came back home. It would be a heartbreaking situation for her, and I want to live just for her, just for my family.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And it looks like Abram has finally managed to join us again.
Hello,
Welcome back, brother man.
I'm back. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties, but I
Yeah,
appreciate your shares, Sarah. It sounds like you've been through quite a lot, and I think it's remarkable that you've seen through those all the struggles that you've been through, and you're here sharing with us, and you're giving us hope and encouragement, and for people that have who might be going through a similar situation. And I think that's such a gift for you to share with us. Well, I'm curious. So
thank you.
at what point in your journey did you find your own power despite your the difficulty from your situation, from all you've experienced?
Many time, um, but the most importantly, when I arrive in the United States, I have the opportunity to help my family so that they can come over as well. So that's um, that's a very good time for me to think back that yes, I can help my family and other people. In the meantime, while I'm sponsoring my family, I also sponsor two other families. It's about let's see, 9 people altogether, beside my own family. So that was very humbling that you know I can help other people. They appreciate it. At that time, that's what they need. But now there are so many different kind of need that I can help. I can inspire people. I love to share my story. It hurt at the beginning at first time, but as I keep sharing, it's become better. But when I know that this story can help other people, I don't mind hurting a little bit.
That's so beautiful, and I think it's. I feel it's amazing. I'm hearing this from so many different stories that people have shared, but what you just pointed me to is I think it's amazing how we can find our own power, our own expression in how we are able to help others. And it was like from how you could, benefit your family and others and other families and neighbors. And to me, that's whatever. No matter who you pray to or don't pray to, I feel every spiritual practice or organization has some value of the golden rule, treating others how we want to be treated. And I think it's remarkable that you finding your own, overcoming your own struggle ultimately came from you being able to help other people. And it's just like a gift
Yeah.
that keeps giving, and it's such a beautiful circle. How you sharing your experience will let someone else see that they can do the same.
Yes, yes. I also want to give credit to the people that helped me. When I first arrived to Connecticut, I have a lot of help. The people from the church, from the community helped me so much.
Mm.
They found me an apartment, and they furnished the apartment for me and bring me here and there to find my way to start my new life. So that was very critical, and so I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
just
now it's time for me to give back, because I was on the receiving end, and now I'm in a position to give back in a different way.
I love that journey. I really do. And to anyone out there, just really quick, I just like to throw this out. Um, Not everyone is always in a position to help. Like I recognize that, I get that. Sometimes we're in the position where we need the help. I've been there. I know, Sarah, you've been there a lot, and I love that you're finally around to the place, and have been for a while. It seems like where you know it's come full circle, where you're someone else's angel.
Yes,
You had
thank
so many angels going through that journey, and now you get to be that. And having experienced that journey in my own way, like I really like. I just want to point that out even stronger. Like where you are now is where you are now, and wherever you are, that's okay.
yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. So what I have been through is put me in the position that I build my strength. Without going through that hard time, I probably not as strong as I am today. I don't know what you understand what I mean, but when you go through a tough time, you become stronger after you overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And that's our choice. Like that, and that was the choice you made. You can either push through it and become stronger from it, or you can let it go and fall by the wayside and maybe die. But that's a choice.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody have a choice. It's a matter of the attitude. It's come from our mindset and our heart. If we have love in our heart, and we have family to love like me, or you have somebody to love, you have children, you have spouse to love, you will find a way. You'll find a way.
Or even just love of yourself. Like even if there's no one else around, just love
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think
Yeah,
it's
thank you
so
so
remarkable. I think it's so remarkable. You're sharing your story, and I've used this example before, but it's, it's through our struggles that human beings become like diamonds and pearls. Through under pressure, our beauty shines through, and it's like
Yeah,
it's that choice, to live by choice and not by chance, and not to be a victim of our circumstance, but to
right,
actually create something and transcend all the pain and all the suffering to create something beautiful, where there's not only the suffering is behind us, but we have a way to help people out of that. And I have one question I'd like to ask you. What Sarah, what does one day mean to you?
one day, well, everybody want to do something. They always have goal, but if you don't pinpoint, if you don't define when, you just one day I'm going to be an author. It's it would not happen. You have to pin it down. What is that one day you will be? For me, one day I will speak to inspire thousands of people in the big audience. I don't know where, but it's in the big audience. That's my that's my one day goal. So I'm working toward that.
I love
Oh,
it. I
yeah.
love it. Well, we hope you'll come speak again before us, and share more with us.
Sure, I would love that.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing. I'm really
Thank
we're
you.
grateful to have you with us.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you
So
for having me.
Of
Mm.
course. And thank you all for tuning in with us. And thank you again, Sarah. We like to extend an invitation and encourage you watching in and you're listening in to share yourself. Join us on this stage. This is a space for you to share your unique gift, your unique contribution, passion, talent, something that you have that all of us are better off because you're sharing it. And we want to invite you to join us. Go to our website. You can see at the bottom of the screen. You'll have opportunity to join us on the stage, to volunteer, and be at the forefront of this movement that's only getting started. But this invitation is an open invitation, and I've said this before, but if there's a little bit of hesitation, if there's something inside, it's like maybe I want to share, maybe I want to be on that stage, I invite you to listen to that intuition, because there's something beautiful on the other side. And I discovered this myself. I was terrified. I was afraid to be authentic, to open up my heart. And there's something that we can't even predict when we actually let ourselves just share ourselves and not be afraid to be vulnerable. It's because there's such strength and weakness, and you don't really even discover that until you try it out. But we'd like to extend that invitation and encourage you to share what you have, because there's something you have that I or nobody else has that contributes to us all. And that's part of what our mission is, which is bringing you and I and communities together in joyous celebration, unifying humanity in our diversity to create a better world for us all. That's what this stage is for, and that's what this movement is about. I would like to now invite our next guest. We have Randy Peyser. Hello, Randy.
Hi,
Thank
it's
you for
Randy
joining us.
Peyser. Different pronunciation. My last name
Peyser.
is Peyser. Yeah.
My apologies for the mispronunciation, but I'm so happy to have you with us, Randy. We've been talking for a couple weeks now, and Randy's been giving us a lot of our guests that we've had recently is because of the contacts Randy has shared with us, and I'm so grateful for you to finally have you on the stage sharing yourself.
You know, I have 69 misspellings of my name in my book, Crappy to Happy. There's like Randy Pooper. That's a name I never want to be called again. Our friend from the Bird Kingdom, Randy Peeper, Randy Pepper. Then names you can't even pronounce. And there's like Sandy Tyson, Tizer, Lizer, Kaiser, Miser. I mean, it just goes on and on. They're hysterical.
I love it. I love it. Well, welcome to the stage, Randy.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to go ahead and let you have at it. And Randy, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you very, very, very much. You know, I'm in the people get book deals with New York publishers, and people, I've been on a lot of stages, and people say, well, how'd you get started in this? And I truthfully tell people, well, I slept my way into the publishing industry and the only way we got to spend time was hanging out. I wound up taking over the magazine and then became editor-in-chief. I really heard of the soul. I say is the soul when half or so, like it's the dark year and a half of the soul, but he calls it. So to that magazine got sold, and I was out of a job, and I was
Oh, looks like we lost her.
Yep, looks like we lost Randy. I mean, it's kind of inevitable. I mean, it's once you have a virtual stage, someone's internet will cut out, and I guess that's the one difficulty of when we're all on quarantine, or not anymore. Some people aren't in quarantine, but sometimes you lose feed. But we'll wait for Randy to get back. But while we're here, I wanted to. Well, Matthew, tell me what do you see opening up right now with all with the opportunity in the world right now? Oh, there's Randy.
There she is. Oh, hold on, Randy. We'll bring you back on.
Am I starting over or picking it up?
Yeah, you were pretty choppy. I caught maybe like 2 sentences out of your intro. So if you have a stable internet connection, let's start from the beginning and
we'll see. We'll see how stable it is.
Right.
Seems good right now. Well, let's take 2. That's and lo and behold, once again, Randy, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm in the world of publishing. I help people get book deals with New York publishers. And people say, how'd you get into the publishing world? And I say, I slept my way into the publishing industry, which is actually really true, but maybe not in the way that you think. I actually fell in love with a magazine publisher and started working at the magazine. And the relationship did not last, but I wound up taking over the magazine. And my identity was attached to being editor-in-chief of a very large Bay Area mind, body, spirit magazine. But then the magazine got sold and I was out of a job and I lost my identity. And I experienced what many of you might call a dark night of the soul. But is it really ever just one night? No, we need some truth in advertising. It's actually the dark year and a half of the soul. And during that time, I lived by the answer to a question. And the question I would ask myself was, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? And I might ask myself that question 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day. What's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? I was so sad. I was lost in my life. And sometimes the answer was cry, do the dishes, take a walk. Whatever I heard, this was an internal dialogue I would do. And one day when I was asking myself, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? I heard sit, do nothing. And okay, I sat cross-legged on my carpeted floor. 10 minutes later, I'm asking, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? And I'm still hearing the same thing, sit, do nothing. I had a bunch of Hanukkah candles. So my father was always giving to charities in Israel, and he always sent me all the Hanukkah candles he would get. And I decided, well, while I'm sitting and doing nothing, I can light some candles. And I would sit with those candles until they went out, which was an hour and 20 minutes. And for 2 weeks, I was sitting with the candles, and I got so quiet inside, I felt like I could hear the silence of a flame. Very, very quiet. Then I started thinking of stories from my life, and I started just writing these stories. At that time, it was the Mac Junior Classic, with a screen, teeny tiny little screen. And within a month, I had 100 pages. And I started looking at those 100 pages and saying, I think I have a book. But if I have a book, what book is this? Well, eventually it turned into a book called Crappy to Happy. And I started looking for publishers for this book. Little did I know that I was creating a whole new life for myself just from having asked the question, what's the most loving thing that I can do for me right now? Because I wound up finding a publisher for my Crappy to Happy book. And then I started helping other people. And it was just a very organic process. I wasn't looking to create a business, which wound up happening. And didn't know I would be helping hundreds of people get New York publishers. I had no idea. But I just started from that place of asking, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? Now, it wasn't super easy for me to find a publisher. I was going to the big feeding frenzy in the United States for the publishing industry. It's called Book Expo America. And every year I was going there, but I wasn't making the right connections. They liked my writing, but they said, you don't have enough of an audience. You don't have enough eyeballs on you. And one day there was nothing left in my refrigerator except for the box of baking soda. And I decided, I'm eating the plums off of neighbors' trees. Friends are bringing me squash from their garden. I need to do something. And I started hearing this small voice in my head, and I'm thinking, no, there's no way I'm going to do this. But it was the only thing I heard to do. So finally, one day on a Wednesday at rush hour from 4 to 5 p.m. in Mill Valley, California, right off the East Blytheville exit, I wore a dress, high heels, my naturally curly perm, makeup, and I was holding a giant cardboard sign that read, Author Seeks Publisher. And I held it off the freeway. I was desperate, folks. I was also terrified, but I did it. And guess what happened? A publisher called me that evening. He offered me the job as editor-in-chief of his national magazine. But that wasn't my dream. My sign read Author Seeks Publisher. Should have read Author Seeks Publisher for her book. So be careful about what you ask for, right? But anyway, I knew being editor-in-chief of a magazine was not my dream. I had already done that in the Bay Area in a big way. And so I was willing to stand in my truth. And my truth was I knew this book was going to help people. It came from such a deep place in my soul. And I knew this was my work in the world, to get my Crappy to Happy book out there. And so the publisher of this magazine, this national magazine, said, well, how'd you like to work this for us until we find our right person? Then all of a sudden, light bulb went off in my head. Perhaps I can make a connection to a publisher while being editor-in-chief of a national magazine that I can't make while sitting in my living room waiting for my phone to ring. So I took the job, absolutely loved it, and it furthered my career in the writing world. And I stayed with that job until the company went under. It was part of a larger company that had nothing to do with publishing. My work was good, folks. So then I was trying to figure out how am I going to get a publisher? And I wound up going into a music store one day, and I found a guitar. It was $1,000 left-handed guitar. I really wanted that guitar, but I didn't have the money for it. I had worked for another magazine. They turned out to be embezzlers. I never got paid for months and months of work I did after the national magazine. Most people would crumble under such circumstances. I'm the kind of person who will go into a music shop and just play on some instruments. I found this guitar. I'm not an impulse buyer, but I am a guitarist. And I love this guitar. When I asked the man in the store, how much is this guitar? And he said, $1,000. I said, I'm going to own that guitar within a month. I had no money. But it was that sense of just knowing that you know you're going to make something happen no matter what. You're going to make it happen. And that was the feeling I had in me. And a friend said, well, why don't you hold a show? Invite your friends to prepay for tickets. And that's what I did. And so I was charging $20 for a ticket. And another friend said, my living room will hold 40 people. Great, I had a venue. The only thing was I was terrified of performing. I was terrified of getting up in front of people. But I wanted this guitar so much I was willing to take that risk. You have to want something so much in order to take that kind of risk. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not going to play guitar for an hour and a half. Maybe I'll read some stories from my manuscript. And I wound up creating little skits around it too. A week before my show, I had 60 people who had paid $20 a piece. So now I needed a larger venue, and I rented a room, like a hall in a church, in a Unitarian church in Marin. And I went to get my guitar, and I'm so excited. I've got that $1,000 in hand, and I walk in the store, and they said, "Oh, we made a mistake." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm about to dissolve," And they said, "No, it turns out the guitar was used. It's here in consignment. We'll sell it to you for $400." I think I need that mic, that microphone, that guitar case, and that special effects unit. And it occurred to me that, I wonder if I'm going to be doing more than one show. So I went and did my show. I was absolutely terrified, but I did it. And the show was successful. It was called Comic Intervention for Closet Visionaries and Almost Manifestors. A one-woman show, except for the other people. And so the show was successful, and I went to do more and more shows because I was having fun and people were laughing a lot. And as a result of doing the show, when I went back to the publishing industry giant feeding frenzy trade show in New York, publishers were like, their eyes were lit up. You do a show? Tell us about it. And within 2 weeks, I had a book deal, which was my dream. And what I've discovered over the year is that what I'm really here for, it's not just about books. What I tell people is a book isn't just words on a page, it's your dream. And I get to help people birth their dreams. And that's really what I'm about. But the dream can be anything. I'm a marvelous connector of people, and I'm nationally networked, and it's something I completely enjoy doing. So that's my story, folks, kind of in a nutshell. One of the things I'd really like to share with you has to do with fear, because no matter what your dream is, there usually comes a point where you hit your ceiling, no matter what the dream is. And I love to share this example because it's helped so many people to overcome their dream, their fear. Because you might want something, but if you're holding a fear with it, it's not going to happen as quickly. So here I am, about 19 years ago, on the show floor of the publishing industry feeding frenzy. There's 40,000 people, and everybody has their agenda, and everybody's speaking quickly. Everybody's making their connection, and it's very intimidating. It's a deer in the headlights experience for someone who is not used to this kind of situation. And I'm there at this show with, looking for a publisher with a very dear friend of mine who's a national publicity strategist named Jill Lublin. And this is Jill. We're walking along, and all of a sudden she goes, USA Today. She's running after the USA Today person. And this is me, USA Today, and then proceeding to follow her. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden she goes, CNN. And she's like dashing after the CNN gal. And I go, CNN, and I follow. And I realized I had this hiccup of hesitation, that I call it. And wherever we hold these hiccups, we're aware of them, where we're moving towards our dream, but there's those little hiccups. That's your dream will happen, but it's not going to happen as quickly. That's what I discovered. So here I am on the show floor with 40,000 people, when everybody has their own New York minute and agenda. And I realized I wanted to overcome that hiccup, that fear of just going up to people I don't even know, and media people, no less. And so I decided I would physically model my friend Jill on the show floor without taking the back step, without the little hiccup. And then we're walking along. All of a sudden, I went, Ladies Home Journal, boom, right after that person. And so what I do now, if I start feeling those hiccups anywhere, I'll say to myself, go, go. And I'll just take that step without the hiccup. And that's really how you make magic happen. At least that's how I've been making magic happen in my life. And here I am, 20 years later, where I have so many what we call hug, hug, kiss, kiss relationships with the top literary agents and publishers because I was willing to take those steps. So I really want to encourage you in your life, wherever the hiccups are, take those steps. If you're in complete unknown of in transition, you're not sure, or you're in crisis, ask yourself, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? This is an internal choice. It's a gentle choice. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. There are times when we take those big risks where you're standing out on the off the freeway with the giant author seeks publisher sign or your version of it. There's other times where you're just listening so closely internally and taking very gentle steps in the direction of whatever your dream is. And that's really, really important. And I think I want to end with one story in particular. I was interviewing Susie Orman, and many of you may know Susie from her magnificent television career helping people with their financial situation. And one of the stories she shared with me during an interview that I did with her, she said that anger repels wealth. So if you want to create more money, more wealth in your life in whatever form, this was her story. She's sitting in her limo in New York and she sees a man squatting on the street. Got a cigarette? He's asking each person that goes by, got a cigarette? Nobody's responding. She reaches in her purse. She has $75. She decides she's going to make this man stay. She's just going to open that door and give him $75. She has her hand, she said she had her hand on the door, ready to open it. And a couple walked by this man, and when they didn't give him money, he spit in their direction. And she said, I took my money and I put it in my purse. And she said, he didn't know what good was about to happen for him, but his anger repelled it. Wherever you're holding anger, if you have, if you've got a clipboard, if you're a Scorpio like me, work it out. Figure out how to work it out. Get it out of your system. See if you can come to neutral with everyone in your life, at least neutral, if not to love. Get to neutral, because we're either contributing to the discordant energy on this planet, or we're contributing to the good on this planet in the giant collective field, the giant soup of what everything is. So be a love giver, be positive, have positive intentions, be of goodwill, and give of your heart. And I think those are probably the most important things that I can share with anyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Randy. That was amazing. There's so many things that hit home for me. And well, to start, when you were saying about that, when you wrote down, or when you had that mental note for the first time, what can I do right now to love myself?
What's the most loving thing? Loving thing.
Yeah. What's the most loving thing I could do? And I had a very similar point in my life. Maybe it was a year and a half ago, where I was up to that point. All my life was just touring with my music, with my band, and I had amazing stories and amazing times. But there's a point where our last tour, it was like hundreds of shows, like sometimes a year, and then an open schedule. So all of a sudden I found myself with an open schedule. I put touring on the shelf, and it was kind of like the first day off the road. I was like, I had all this time, and I'm just like, what am I going to do right now? And I remember writing on my note, I had a scratch pad, and I wrote down, like, what can I do today to bring joy to myself, to my friends, to the people I don't know, to my enemies? And I wrote everything. And then I also said, what can I do today to plant seeds of joy? But what can I do to remove or to rid suffering from myself, from my friends, from my family, from the people I don't know, from my enemies? And I just wrote that in the corner of the page. And it was just that, putting that out there, that opened up a world of intuition, and it just started. I was just scratching, like, what am I gonna do with my time? I have all this free time all of a sudden, and all these things started coming out. And I wrote like swing dancing, and I wrote like all these like all these things, and it was an amazing exercise because I got out of the way. I could kind of. It was a natural expression of, like what you're saying, is like, what's the most loving thing I could do? and it was like it was like the purest intention in everything I did. And I think it's very affirming to hear that you had a similar experience where your career and your success in your life started from that moment of, what can I do right now? What's the most loving thing I can do? And I think that's such a beautiful method to do with your time and energy in your space. And I think that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
It was actually that question was gifted to me by, I have a guitar partner named Deborah LaForest, and she gave that to me as a gift. I would really like to address one of the words that you said, which was about enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked for the city of Pacifica, California, many, many years ago in the 80s. And I worked for a boss who was incredibly mean. I would witness him throwing papers in the air and swearing at other staff people. I mean, he was just a horror of a human being. And I was in my early 30s at the time, and I would like cry during the day because it was so stressful to work with somebody who was such a mean person. And but I hung in there, and he died. And I would do my own internal forgiveness work. And then like a year or two later, I'd think of him and I realized I hadn't forgiven him at all. And something like 6 or 7 years went by. And one night he came to me. It was a lucid experience in a dream. And he was pointing to a blackboard. Because at that time we didn't have whiteboards, we had blackboards. And he was pointing to the board, and I said, oh, he's teaching me something, or he's showing me something. And I received this transmission of love that was so profound. It's like beyond anything I have experienced on the earthly plane. And in that second, I realized that I felt like he was making his amends to me from beyond the veil. And what I learned from that experience is ultimately the only place that we are all going to is love, ultimately. So I asked myself, can I be that love now here? So it's my intention with anyone, if there's any discordant energy anywhere, I want to at least bring it to neutral if I can't bring it to high love. I'm just doing my best like everyone else. But it's my intention to bring everything back to love if I can.
I love it. I love everything, the sentiment, everything you just said. And another thing that stood out to me is when you're talking about when you're talking about Jill and that hiccup of fear, and I love that, because we all experience that. We all have a resistance to, it could be little things, when we're interacting in public, or it could be, there'd be so many things. But I feel like that for most people, and myself included, that those hiccups are what become a wall for possibility for anything, any form of abundance in my life. It's like when I believe and I listen to that fear, and I let the hiccup actually become like a full on cough, or even a block. And like, I think that's so powerful to recognize that and to be able to transcend it. That's very powerful. Like, how did you muster up the courage to face your own hiccups of fear?
Well, in that case, it was, to actually physically walk, just, take the action and walk. But I also suggest to people, you can ask yourself, what is it I'm truly willing to allow? Because what you're truly willing to allow doesn't contain fear, or it might contain a little wee bit of it, but it can be a very gentle step forward and not the huge risk. And so also by asking yourself, what is it I'm truly willing to allow? Like years ago, I wanted a relationship. And I asked myself, it was like, yes, I want a relationship. Universe, bring it to me. No, I don't want to have my heart skewered again. I don't want to be betrayed. And so, I asked, well, what is it I'm truly willing to allow? I'm willing to allow a dinner out with a new person, a phone conversation with a new person, and maybe holding hands. And that was my safe zone, and it's just like, it allowed me to move forward beyond the hiccup. So I'm a strong believer in self-inquiry. We ask ourselves questions, what's the most loving thing I can do for me right now? What is it I'm truly willing to allow? Those kinds of questions. It's not somebody else's answer or somebody else's voice in your head, and you're asking yourself.
Right. I love how you put it as an inquiry. It's very
Yes.
powerful. Like it's an inquiry is not like a you need like a forceful answer or you need it's just like you sit with it and it answers itself as opposed to like there's no pressure for an inquiry. It's something that it becomes an intuition and not just a pressure that you feel like you have to do something on your checklist. I
Right.
think that's a beautiful that's beautiful that you've articulated that, and I'm actually that resonates so deeply with me. So I really appreciate that you sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And there was a lot in there, like a lot. I got chills a couple of times listening to it just because I resonate with those experiences, in particular, like when you're talking about the silence, like getting so silent you could hear a flame.
Oh yeah, it was pretty amazing. It was very amazing. You know, there's an Oprah quote that I saw her accepting an award years ago on TV, but I love this quote. She said, I always knew that God, the universe, had a bigger dream for me than I could dream for myself. So I asked, what is your dream for me? And will you allow me to live in that dream?
Exactly, and
It's
that
like
just
when we
goes back.
don't stop ourselves, we don't go into our hiccups. We just live in the dream.
Yeah, and
Beautiful.
this is the power of awareness, of self inquiry, of introspection, of like whatever you want to call it. Like this is it right here. Like you're a perfect demonstration of what can happen when you really pay attention to yourself.
Yes.
And I love like even how you did it. I work with a lot of people around things like this, and inevitably, the very first question that comes when I start talking about things like this is, well, how? Like how? Like, does it make sense? How? Like, it's not how. It's what. What does it feel like when you actually stop and pay attention to your body? What does it feel like when you hold two potential futures in your head? Does one feel more expansive? Like, does your breath increase? Can you breathe deeper when you envision this one, when you versus envision this one? And it requires a level of silence and stillness to feel those things.
Yes.
They don't happen in the day-to-day life. They don't happen in the rat race where, when I was out running around chasing a dream, that I had never even taken the time to feel into whether or not I even wanted that dream. I like there was no concept of the stillness of slowing down. And it was only in these moments where I lost everything and had no choice but to stop and be still and listen that inner voice started coming forward. And for you it was a voice, and that's awesome. I know plenty of people who it's a voice as well, but like for me it was that feeling. It was that, oh, I can breathe deeper when I hold this, you know.
You know, when I stood off the freeway in Mill Valley, I was terrified. And but as the cars were going by, people were giving me the thumbs up. They were beeping, I hope you get it. You know, my author seeks publisher sign. And after a while, I realized that whenever we take these big creative risks, it gives permission to other people to do the same.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, I wanted that dream so much. You know, being not just having like a book. I felt like I wanted a career as an author. I didn't know it would take the shape it does, where I helped tons of people, but you know, it was my dream, and I felt really supported the more I stood out there, and I got braver and braver.
Yeah, and like that level of trust is just amazing. Like, and maybe it wasn't even trust in that moment. Maybe it was just like tried everything else and like this is the
Right,
last ditch effort. Like, just
right.
why not? But then from that, trust comes.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, the night of my show, and again, I had never performed before. I remember asking when I did my second show. I asked an acting coach because I knew nothing about like getting up in front of people, and I don't really act. I'm just myself in front of people. But I asked him, "What happens if only 5 people show up?" And he said, "Then you have 5 people to love." And I thought that was really profound too. But that first night, here I am in front of an audience of 60 people, and 15 minutes before the show, I have my new guitar and the electronics completely broke on the guitar. And I'm in tears. I'm like devastated. I worked for embezzlers on a magazine. I, just lost my big job, just everything. And I'm just so devastated. And a friend of mine came up to me before the show and she said, I know what you mean. Remember my house burned down last week. And so I got on the stage, explained to the audience how all the electronics had broken down on the guitar. And I talked about my friend whose house just burned down. I said, why is there always someone to one up your crappy moment? And it got a big audience laugh, even from the gal whose house had burned down. And, it just all worked out. And I wound up just using, the standing mic for my guitar, and everything worked. So.
Wow.
As it always does. Even if
Yeah.
it didn't work out the way expected, it always works out perfectly, right?
Yeah, it just does.
Real quick, I think Sarah is still with us. If we could bring her back, because
yeah, I also wanted to ask Randy, because I asked this to Sarah. What does one day mean to you? And then I want to bring you into the conversation, Sarah.
Yeah, I love that question. What one day means to me. So what one day means to me is that one of the things that I heard somebody in a church service, Steve Moyer was giving this talk for like a New Thought kind of church. And he said, if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, you want to know if you're their priority or an option. And I started thinking about that in terms of the book world, because it's like one day means it's your priority. It's not your option. So like in the book world, a lot of people have a dream of writing a book one day. If it's a priority, they're going to do it. If it's an option, it's not going to happen. And so for me, one day means whatever you're choosing, it's your priority. It's not an option. It's your absolute priority. For me, getting that guitar, buying that guitar was an absolute priority. If it had been an option, I wouldn't have gotten it.
Absolutely. So. Oh yeah, I love it. It's not I mean we all have been guilty of it, but I've had the same thing where I'm like, one day I'll get to that, or like just recently I was like, I'll get to writing music once I figure this out, and like I'll put things off and put it in the later pile, and it's that intention to do it someday means you're just avoiding doing it. It's not, it's not, right. and that's what this organization has been. It's the one day is today. It's not something that we're just projecting and kicking down the road. It's something that we're taking responsibility for now, our own peace in our own hearts and in our own communities. But I'm gonna bring Sarah into the conversation now. Hello again, Sarah.
Hi.
So, is there any? Well, I want to let you speak a little bit. Is there anything either of you would like to share after hearing each other's speaking?
I'd love to share. Sarah, I was so moved by your talk, and my family background is Holocaust. So there was a lot that I could relate to in your sharing in the murder of many of my family members at my grandmother's family, her mother gassed, and 14 brothers and sisters, and all the stories that I've grown up with. And just experiencing the stories over the years and knowing my family's background, I could really relate to the things you were talking about. Very, very much so.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, because a lot of people, when I talk about not enough food, they have no idea what it means. For 4 years, we don't have enough food to eat. It's a different perspective when you never exposed to this type of situation. So yeah, when you heard your ancestor talk about it, it's relatable. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, very, very strong. I mean, I have one relative that survived the camps, and she wrote her memoir. And she was talking about how she and her sister, there were two of them that had made it to the end of the war. The war was declared over. The Nazis had fled. And anybody who could still stand ran to the pantries there to get food because everybody was starving. But it turned out the Nazis had poisoned the food they left behind. So, you think about that level of hatred and brainwashing to the point where, And it turned out that the two sisters, the one who could get food, ran and ate, whereas my one great aunt who survived was so ill and on the ground that she couldn't even eat the food, but she's the one that survived. Just amazing. So, we have those kinds of stories, in your life and in my life that we grow up with. And I remember with the whole COVID thing, there was a sign a friend of mine posted as a meme on Facebook recently with somebody with their hand out the window with a cardboard sign saying COVID was caused by rats and Jews. And it's just like the hatred, it proliferates. And I think that all we can do is be the love we are.
Yeah, definitely.
And keep sharing. Both
Yeah,
of
just like the whole one day movement. We're just being the love we are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
and you're just uniting with more people of the human tribe who can relate.
yeah.
Mhm.
We
yeah.
all can relate to each other. I listened to some of your previous speakers, Abram and Matthew. So is we have so many things in common.
Mhm.
Yeah, more than I think most people realize. I mean,
Mhm.
it's hearing these stories that to me offers the perspective that allows me to continually be bigger and like my allow my heart to expand and give more. You
Mhm.
know, I've been through my own trials and tribulations. I've faced my own death multiple times, but I've never encountered that level of hatred and fear and bigotry and like not to the extremes that you two are talking about. Um, and like it breaks my heart hearing those stories. It really does. But at the same time, I'm looking for like Abram has this phrase that I've stolen because I love it so much. I'm looking for the collateral beauty, not the collateral damage, but the collateral beauty in all of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we can always look for something beautiful to be thankful for in the midst of any problem. You still, if you're looking for something to be thankful for, you will find something.
Exactly. There's
Absolutely.
always something.
It's the beauty that we weren't looking for, and that it's the same with our what you were saying, Randy, about that Oprah quote. It's I feel the biggest, most important, impactful things that happen in our lives are never really the things that we plan. I mean, it's great to have goals and to have plans. I'm shooting for this
Right.
target and I'm aiming towards it, but it's never ends up exactly how we planned it. It's always something that happens along that path that opens up. There's tragedy or there's opportunity or a mix of the two. Somebody dies or gets sick or something happens that opens up and something a new paradigm or a new something that we weren't expecting, and that
Right.
opens up a whole new realm. And I see that like approaching the world that way. The only thing that we there's no such thing as being as control, and there's no such thing as really being prepared. I feel like it's only being at flow with the moment. And at any given moment, everything we have could be taken away, but it's when we can be present and we can be aware and we can be the love and the light that we are. That's that we can love can adapt to any situation. It's and
Yeah.
it's not an external force that changes that. That's an internal decision. And I'm really so just humbled and honored that both of you
That
are
is so true.
joining us.
So true. So many things happen without a plan.
Yeah.
Just like me coming to America, I never planned, never in my dream that I will come here. But
Hmm.
it happened without me
Right.
planning it. God planned it
Right.
for me.
And here you are with us.
Yeah.
It means so much to have both of you to share your stories and just who you are. It really shakes me to the core hearing both of you share, and
Mm.
just so profound and so many deep ways. And I know people watching and listening in feel the same. And I'm so grateful. And this has been an amazing conversation. And I hope you both come back and share with us some more soon.
Sure, anytime, anytime. But I just want to compliment you both for being faithful and doing a great job bringing people together.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we couldn't do it without you, and it's shares and stories like yours that make it worth it a million times over. This is when I talk about plans, like when we started this, I didn't know what to expect, and every episode, every share, I'm reminded just there's some even in the midst of a pandemic and a lot of crazy things happening in the world, there's so many beautiful people who have how they got here and how they got to be like just share their beauty is just it's remarkable, and it just humbles me and keeps me keeps just humility and close to my heart and compassion. And there's never a point where everything's perfect. Everybody's dealing with something different, and when we can recognize each other as who we are and not our fears, not the things that hold us back in our story and the our own victim mentality of our circumstances. And I think it's remarkable what's possible when we choose to face what we're dealing with and be empowered by just finding our own state of flow and our own power and our own self-expression in the midst of tragedy and trial and tribulation. And I think both of you have just inspired me so deeply. So just thank you so much, just from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ladies,
Thank you.
thank you. It's been a pleasure today. I really appreciate having both of you on and hearing your stories. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Yes, as Matthew said,
You're
until next time,
welcome.
we will be back next week on Tuesday. I'm just so grateful for all of you to join us today. We will see you next week. I love you. Be safe. Take care. And until next time, one day is today. Peace, everybody. Goodbye.